One of my favorite RPGs of all time is Octopath Traveler. With its, at the time, unique style, beautiful pixel work, fun and deep turn-based combat system, and its branching stories, Octopath Traveler is unlike any other game. Its sequel, creatively named Octopath Traveler 2, is set to release on February 24th. The surprise is that it's also coming to PlayStation 5. Now, one of the best parts of RPGs on Switch is the ultra portability that makes the long hours of an RPG manageable in bite-sized chunks. But now, if you're a Switch owner and a PlayStation 5 owner, you have a major decision to make. Hi, I'm Pyrus for Pyrus Gaming, and today we dig in to check out the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch versions of Octopath Traveler 2 to try to help you decide which should you go for, the mobility of the Switch or the power of the PlayStation. Let's find out. To begin with, I've labeled each side with simply A and B to test if you can see the major differences in identical scenes. Now here's a look at the different character screens and how they match up between the two systems. Personally, I feel like I can see a slight difference in fidelity between the two, and in general the biggest difference is just an increase in contrast and sharpness. Before I reveal which is which, let me know in the comments below which system is A and which is B. Okay, reveal in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so most of you probably got it right, but let's really look into the characters, the scenery, the special effects. How do they stack up in the general environment, in battle, and how about those load times? Now, for all of this video, I chose the same story so that I could continue to match up the two sides of the screen. I also switched between the audios of the two different systems as well, and honestly, there's not a huge difference between the two. Also, don't make too much of any differences in volume. That could just have to do with the capture card I used to get one or the other. Checking out the battles, the big difference that I see between the two, and it carries over into other elements of the game too, is the PlayStation 5 just has a more rich, more contrasty look with a lot more sharpness to it. The Switch holds its own though. It has a lot of the same particle effects, maybe not quite as detailed, or maybe not quite as nice or impressive looking as the PlayStation 5, and the colors are just a little less saturated, a little less punchy.
What? What a filthy town. Time to go home.
Now, one of the things you do notice with the Switch is the load times. The PlayStation 5 has absolutely no trouble with pretty much instant loads into everything, but the Switch's load times aren't bad, they're just noticeable because they're there. So you'll see a little blue emblem that pops up in the bottom right hand corner of the screen for the Switch. For the PlayStation 5, I don't even know if they put that in the game because of how quickly it loads.
A good dagger is not unlike one's own hand. Flexible, deft, and capable of taking a life with a flick of a wrist. Just like you, Throne.
In this transition, it didn't even show up on the screen.
A good dagger is not unlike one's own hand. Flexible, deft, and capable of taking a life with a flick of a wrist. Just like you, Throne.
My hopes for you, Throne. But in my eyes, you are still lacking. Now then, time for your punishment.
In this scene, you can see the difference in color, and it's just a little more washed out on the Switch, but there isn't any sacrifice in terms of the number of sprites on the screen or the general detail of the room. It's honestly pretty much the same. It's just that lack of contrast, lack of saturation, and a little loss of detail.
What to do?
They have added a nice 3D effect to the battles when you power up your abilities to the max level and use one of your abilities, and that's present in both versions, so the Switch doesn't miss out on any of that.
All tidied up.
So what I've done is I've placed the two images side by side, one over the other, and cropped, and I've done my best to line up the two images. So you can see the little demarcation in the middle of the screen that's showing you where that crop is, mostly because of the difference in the color between the two systems.
I'm sure you'll find us more satisfying than the Lord himself.
My apologies, but I doubt you boys could afford my talents.
Here you can see some of the combat elements side by side.
My turn.
It's not exactly shot for shot, but similar, so you can see some of the differences. The lighting effects are definitely stronger on the PlayStation 5. It's a little more hazy on the Switch. The PlayStation 5, you can actually see how the lantern is structured, and it just has more of a blooming effect.
Don't do this. I don't want to fight you.
In this scene, one kind of strange difference is that the rain hits the ground for the PlayStation 5, and on the Switch it doesn't seem to make a splash anywhere. It's sort of a small detail, but I guess raindrops have a significant effect on the system.
I'm sorry, Throne.
Hero. Has your dagger not tasted enough blood already? Hero. Cleaning time.
So this is an example of a boss battle and how that stacks up between the two systems. Again, the particles and everything are really similar. There's not a huge difference. It's just the additional effects of the light, the sharpness, the contrast, and those are the main elements you're going to see.
Ready? There, eat this. Cleaning time. Hero. Afraid of the dark.
In this split screen here, you can see how the flooring is just not quite as sharp. It just doesn't look quite as good, especially when the light's cast on it.
Afraid of the dark. Ready?
In this scene, for some reason, there was a huge difference in the lighting. I'm not quite sure why it was so much brighter. I didn't change any settings or anything. I'm guessing it just has to do with the lighting effect they use for the background. You can see some differences in the little purple flames. But again, overall, you're not missing out on a whole lot when you're going to the Switch. And it's not like this is a really graphically intensive game. So it's definitely a better experience on PlayStation 5. But I'm just not sure that it's worth giving up the mobility. You may also notice some slight differences in shimmering or jittering between one of the sides as well.
You forgot! It's dried the shadows from our hearts!
Ah, yes. My apologies. You've a fine memory, young man.
Everyone knows how that part goes, Temenos! At least get your own performance right!
Now then, with that foible behind me.
To wrap things up, for me personally, I think I'm going to hang on to the Switch version of the game. Mostly because I want to keep both games on the same system, and because the mobility of the Switch gives me that extra opportunity to try and cram in a long game like Octopath Traveler. That being said, I can clearly see the differences, so let me know in the comments down below which version do you think you're going to go with. If you're interested in more coverage of Octopath Traveler 2, I will be doing a full review, hopefully not too long after its release later this month. If you're interested in seeing where the original Octopath Traveler ended up on my year-end rankings for last year, click on this video right here, or if you want to see an example of one of my full reviews, you could check out this one right here. But that's going to do it for me for today. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I will see you there.